It's my integrity.
Yeah.
And if my integrity was where it needed to be, then I lived with the result.
Yeah. And when I say society scorecard, what I mean by that a lot is that there's a pressure from media, there's a pressure from culture to do certain things that society thinks makes you successful, is going to make you happy or make you content, that often don't bring that. But the portrayal that society bestows upon people is that if you own a house and if you have this much and if you do all these things, that's a good life, without the self-inquiry to actually go, well, does this give me a sense of fulfillment and a sense of meaning for how I want to spend this 80 years on this planet? So that's sort of my grounding on what I see is it's an illusion that there's a society deems us to be right or wrong, and people can go through life discontent and unhappy for a long time, but still hopping on the train thinking it's going to get somewhere special. And that's sort of why I would never scorecard anyone personally, but society does portray that illusion.
I couldn't agree with you more. I laugh at that.
Yeah.
If anyone on this planet honestly believes that there's a template that falls across all 7 billion people, then I will go on record happily as saying that they're a fool.
Yeah.
That's just not the case. There are horses for courses, there are different ways and means, and you do have to find a way forward that's appropriate to you. Could I be the Nimbin-based hippie who just disconnects from life and has a completely off-the-grid approach and so forth? Yes, I could. Could I be that high-flying corporate who covets money and fame and fortune in terms of their business acumen and progress? Yes, I could. Would I be happy with either? No, I couldn't.
Yeah.
So I have to look at those two polar extremes, if you will, and everything else in between, and pick out the best bits that suit me.
Yeah.
What actually can I learn from both of those examples? For me, just as a quick snapshot, I probably need to learn from the Nimbin hippie. Yeah, sometimes you do have to fall off the grid.
Yeah.
And restoke the fire and rebalance and re-energise and move forward again. What can I learn from that corporate high flyer? Goals are important.
Yeah.
Benchmarks are important. You do need to have a ladder to climb or a path to tread in whichever direction you set. Yeah. Would I like to be either of them, as I said? Not at all. No, so that's not for me.
It's sort of how you hold the tension between both and operate on that. Imagine a tightrope and they're either ends of a tree, and you got to manoeuvre. If you go too far to one side, the other side will pull over.
Correct.
So
absolutely,
it's that sort of that feeling. How important, and I know some of the work you've done with White Line and that, for instance, how important in your values and belief space is giving?
Hugely important. It's why we're here right now doing this podcast.
Yeah.
I get asked to do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. This podcast certainly doesn't even scratch the surface of strange or unusual. This is what I would do for any human being who reaches out to me.
Yeah.
I have no issue with giving anyone literally the shirt off my back.
Yeah.
I would happily do it. Of course, you'd like to see that there is, again, an integrity, an intent, a passion, a want, a need for that person to have the shirt off your back.
Yeah.
But if I can identify that, at least in my own mind, I'll happily do it. Why? Because, again, at 45 years of age, and you mentioned the lucky number 80 earlier in terms of life expectancy and beyond, I know that when I get to 80 and beyond, I will have had thousands and thousands and thousands of people do stuff for me.
Yeah.
Stuff. Underline that 3 times in red pen. Stuff. Just this morning I sent off an email to a particular person. I have absolutely no idea what will come of this email.
Yeah.
But I do know that it's been driven by another lady who had absolutely no need to show such interest in me.
Yeah.
Why did she do it? Well, she's told me because she likes who I am, likes my personality, believes in my message and believes in my talent. But why?
Yeah.
Why did she do this? Well, how kind-hearted, how generous, how loving. And that's extended to my sport, it's extended to my social life, it's extended into my business. So whenever I can pay it back, I always do. Whenever I can pay it forward, I always do. The frustrating thing for me is, and we were talking off air, so to speak, prior to this podcast about cars. I love cars.
Yeah.
I have a huge passion for cars. I just have an incredible connection for cars. They're like a drug for me. I feel a real sense of euphoria when I've discovered them and enjoyed them and built them, etc., etc. I have very limited mechanical abilities. Therefore, I can't often pay those people back with a like for like type skill set. But what I can do is spend time with their young people, for example.
Yeah.
Or I could write something for their website, or I could do something creative for them. So the idea that someone's going to provide you with a service and you're going to be able to share with them your own service or your own skill set is fantastic. The idea that you're going to identify someone else and essentially drop your skill sets into their lap and give them a chance to run with it, I think it's even better.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to look at it, because like when I hear that story, then I hear diversity, because it's not a like for like skill set, which then would incubate the exchange. But the diversity of the exchange is your ability to write, to work with someone young. Then it diversifies the relationship, which is what I think in some realms we desperately need in society, is greater diversity in how we think and how we behave and how we actually exchange energy, whether that's physical energy or whether that's social or mental energy. But it's really paramount for us to flourish. So I love that term. Your ability to really sort of be inquisitive and did you use that, throughout your sporting career, did you use that to develop yourself to become better? Like to really sort of dig in and go, how can I improve that aspect of my sport? Or I know that you went to the bobsled after the footy because there was a want to inquiry. Was that the inquiry to want to go, well, what else can I possibly do while my body's in this shape?
There's a definite side of me in a sporting sense that's always looking for that physical or mental advantage in a sporting context, let alone the rest of my life. For me, it doesn't make sense that we couldn't invest one training session, 1 week, even one moment in looking outside the square. If we're going to do goal kicking, if we're looking at an AFL example here, if we're going to do goal kicking every day for a week for 2 hours, to me that's a waste of time. Of course, we need to practice our goal kicking. We need to become more proficient at it. But is there something related, and we're just using this example of goal kicking, is there something related to goal kicking that we could do beyond a physical approach, beyond a traditional physical approach, beyond even a traditional mindset that could improve our abilities? If it's standing in the corner and waving 2 fish above our heads, well, we can do that for half an hour, and if it proves to be futile, we can scratch that off the list. Or we can say, right, we're going to come back to that in a month and see if it was of any benefit to us. That AFL sporting space can be very, very conservative.
How did you go with that? Like when you were playing,
struggled.
And even now in leadership, you're talking about the suits and stuff. Like how did you go with wanting to ask the question of how could we do this better? Especially back when you were playing, because it was...
Back when I was playing in the olden days, we'd ride cattle to the game, of course. I would struggle at times, because I can tell you a genuine story, and put this on the record. He won't mind me suggesting this and sharing it. I've always had a huge passion and love for basketball. Basketball is a sport that most likely saved my life. I have a great appreciation, fondness, and I get a lot of pleasure out of playing basketball and taking in basketball. When I first made the transition from the Essendon Football Club to the Carlton Football Club, I sat down with David Park, and once our relationship was established, a month or so into my time at the club, and I said, I think there's an opportunity here to do something using basketball in football. Some of the plays, some of the terminology, some of the thinking, some of the zones. I think there's a way in which we can incorporate this in our football development. He looked at me and he said, basketball, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basketball is a rubbish sport. which should play for basically 1 minute with both teams having 135 points, and that's the game. Finished, over. Like, we can't learn anything from this sport. Now, any of your listeners who have any inclination around AFL football would know that in 2018, 2019, football is absolutely bursting with basketballisms.
Yep.
The sport has been permeated by basketball, both in terms of players, thinking, skill sets, rolling out strategies. So for me, I just sit there and shake my head. And David Parkin also has gone from being a basketball non-believer to a basketball tragic.
Yeah.
You know, he's enjoying that space with his grandchildren. He's enjoying being involved in that basketball bubble.
Yeah.
But I just shake my head and think, wow, we had the ability to roll that out back in 1995, 96. But it's now 2000. Like, how much time was lost?
And it was really only, we'll get off this in a minute, but it was really only sort of 2008 when Alistair Clarkson invented the rolling zone, which was basketball orientated, where we'll actually zone, and won a premiership off a side that probably shouldn't have won. The first one with that curiosity of what's possible, as opposed to everyone else, and then they started stacking ends.
I just think you've got absolutely nothing to lose in life by smart investments of time and curiosity.
Yep.
What have you got to lose by picking up a book that you thought was absolute rubbish? You didn't like the cover.
Yeah, judgment.
The blurb made no real sense to you.
Yep.
But you thought, you know what, even if you want to be really anal about it, I'm going to put a 10-minute timer on my phone. I'm going to let it count down. I'm going to find a little quiet nook in my house, wherever it may be. I'm going to open to a random page, or for that matter, the first page, and I'm just going to read, and I'll just see, is there something in this book that stokes a fire, creates some sort of tension, some intensity within me to continue? If not, put it down or extend the timer. But what have you got to lose by doing that? I cannot see where the loss is there.
Yeah. Why do you think that kind of mentality and curiosity, why do you think it's been stifled at the moment, where people sort of aren't as open to that?
My short, easy answer is we live in a world that's continually bracing itself in fear.
Yeah.
Both in the individual, through the community, again through the corporate space. It's all fear-driven. You must get the latest phone. Is your car good enough? Well, if not, you must drive this.
Yeah.
What you're wearing, wow, is that how you're stepping outside today? You need a whole new outfit. Don't forget, it's an outfit that needs to be flexible so you can run away from the terrorists who are lurking at your front door. And you must be able to also pay bills according to your outfit. So make sure there's some give in the sleeve so you can put your credit card across the counter. We live in such a saturated space where everything is fear-driven, and that's from the media to us. Of course, we control the media. We're too foolish to realise that we control the media.
Yeah.
But we're just happy to suck on that teat day in and day out and ingest a whole lot of bullshit. And I just don't buy into that. It is a scary world in many respects, but the scariest things aren't the terrorists or the lack of the latest iPhone. It's the lack of curiosity, the lack of communication, the lack of relationships, which are truly the scariest aspects of life.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And I teach meditation, and one of the things we look at is that the fear and the worry doesn't come in this present moment. It comes in when you go to future or you go back to past. That's when fear and worry comes. But very rarely is there a genuine fear in the present moment. It's always contrived into some other format. But we're so past and future and unconscious about the present moment that the fear then manifests in that. And do you see that as being really the catalyst for, we'll get onto your book in a minute, but for our addiction to the phone and our disconnect from physical relationships, because there's a fear of wanting to do that anymore, or we want to disconnect because we feel it's safe, because it's easier than it was to go out and meet people and put yourself out there and live on the edge a bit more?
I could answer that question in so many different ways. Another really thoughtful question, one that I'm enjoying trying to digest as I ramble towards the microphone right now.